Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Reels and Rhythms, a podcast by Carry On Friends in partnership with The Style and the Vibes and Breadfruit Media. And my co hostess with the mostest is none other than Mikola. I'm sorry. That
Nobody call me what Siri called me.
So, inside joke, guys. Whenever I say, "Hey Siri, call Michaela," it says, "Calling Mikola Rose." Your Siri start answer. I'm not talking to you, Siri. No, do not call anybody. Sorry. Clearly, this
I'm here.
episode is
I'm here.
off to
I'm
a
here.
wonderful
Problem today.
start.
I'm here. Problem today. So, welcome back, guys. Always excited to talk to you, Carrie. Carrie, we are going with Things by this podcast. Yeah.
Yes.
So we are collecting things to talk about, and we would be remiss if we didn't include Three Little Birds. Three Little Birds is a British miniseries, drama miniseries written by Sir Lenny Henry, which was inspired by his mom and the Windrush generation that came to Great Britain from Jamaica and the wider West Indies in the 1950s. So that's really the overview, and it's of three women that came from Jamaica to England. And the series essentially starts with them getting on a boat. And we follow them to England, and we learn about their characters, who they are as people, as well as collectively who they are, how they built community, and what it was like there during that time. So, what were your overall general thoughts? Well, I'll get to some key pieces in there, but overall, did you like it? And what are the main why and why not?
I liked it. It was an entertaining series. It's definitely not Champion that brought the drama in every episode. There were some things that I wanted them to do. I wish the series did, but overall I liked it. I thought about how we get this um context and background for the UK because it's so much easier to identify Britain tapping into its colonial assets and asking them to come over to help rebuild versus what was that like for my grandfather, his brothers coming to the US? What would a story like that? So I couldn't help but think of what is the American version of this story? What does that look like? And a lot of that we can we can see that they landed in Florida for obvious reasons and
Mhm,
also landing in Harlem for obvious reasons. And I
mhm.
would have loved, I couldn't help but think of what that story would look like from the American side. But overall, I enjoyed it. Enjoyed it. There are some aspects of it that we're going to get into obviously, but I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. We have our reels and rhythms ratings, so we'll get into where they stand in our ratings.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was I love a time period piece, and especially because it's a time period that I did not live through. I didn't hear a whole lot of stories about, especially growing up here. The context is a little different, as you kind of alluded to as well. So I was really excited to see this storyline and really exploring it, because essentially we don't know as much as our British Jamaican counterparts about this generation. So I think it's really a great diaspora piece to kind of get perspective and understanding. And I love the era that it's kind of portraying. And it really made me think about, like, potentially, like you said, like what would our grandparents would have went through during that time frame. And they do a good job of diving into it without really harping on all of the different racial aspects. There were some lighthearted moments that I really enjoyed about the entire series, and it could have gone very dark, I think, but it didn't. So I think that that was interesting, and I really do hope it gets picked up for another season or seasons, because essentially you could really bring it up in terms of timeline. because I did really enjoy it. Overall, I did enjoy it. All right. So as I kind of the opener was interesting to me, and I wanted to stay on the opener because they did spend quite a few. They spent some time in the first episode really setting it up, and the only kind of I like that they built in them getting on the boat and really what that experience was like for them and even the people who were like waving to them. I think that that was pretty significant piece of a story that we haven't seen. I've seen videos of stuff like that, like in black and white, but like really bringing that like it's opening more like it's in the morning, it's early, the boat is about to leave, and they're like running onto the boat, not like Jack running on the boat in Titanic, but I think that that experience, to see that and to see black people doing that, I think it's something that I've visually haven't had a colorful reference to. So it was pretty significant, to start the entire series off that way because they it also captured the essence of the excitement, the anxiousness, the unknown, them getting ready to be in the unknown, and even on the boat where a little girl kind of loses her mom for a couple minutes. I thought that that was interesting too, that they showed because these characters, Leah in particular, she's getting on the boat without her kids, right? And so it's a reflective moment for her because she doesn't at the time you weren't sure if she had kids or not, but you see her interaction with this young girl, and we hear so many stories of kids being left behind, and this one kind of showed the dynamic of a parent and the child together. She was almost looking at her like, "What y'all doing in picnic?" Which was, I was like, "That's strange." But what were your thoughts on the opening scene?
Um, I don't know if I have a thought on the opening scene. I think my biggest issue, which is why I'm reserving, I mean, I enjoyed aspects of the series. I'm not gonna lie. But I think the biggest miss for me in the series was I get Hosanna, which is why Hosanna probably is the character that I liked the most because I get her story. I was still trying to figure out, okay, I can see how Leah and Ashton can be related. I was trying to figure out how Chantrell come in. And because of that, I just couldn't connect because it's I mean, we get it. We know how it like auntie so and so is not really auntie, but because them a big woman, them a auntie. So is Chantrell really a sister? Is there a foster home? I thought that was a missed opportunity. They just showed and remember in the opening scene at one point it looked like all three of them walked past each other like they didn't know each other at some point. It wasn't until they got to the landing on the boat and they were over the balcony where you're like, oh, they actually know each other. But at one point, when they were walking on the dock, on the to go on, it seemed like they walked past each other. So for me, that was like the first miss for me, which
Mhm,
was these women. I get Hosanna, which is why I feel like her character to me had the most development.
mhm,
Um, and Chantrell was just like this thing out here that I'm just trying to figure out how does she really fit in? And I think that would have been an important part to kind of tell that story. They do a flashback, but it's still not clear what is this relation.
yeah,
And by anchoring that relation, we understand why Ashton, Leah, and not even not they didn't even lay out good how the three of them oh the three little birds be like okay Leah go church but you understand so I think that was what was missing for me. I get that they're friends but that it seemed like that friendship developed over the journey to the UK as opposed to really giving us like some kind of small a better history or background of their friendship. So for me, the whole time I was like, okay, Chantrella the sister, but is she really the sister?
mhm,
Um, or what is she, a cousin? And people might say, why is that important? It is in the dynamic, because then it would explain, it just, to me, it felt like she was just the person, the actress that they were able to find for this role, versus, so I don't know if it's her fairness that was throwing me off, but
Mhm.
she's a white passing looking woman.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's why I'm just like, wait, am I supposed to look past her color and just focus on her character? And that is hard to do in especially the context of when the film what took place.
Yeah, for sure. I honestly thought that they were going to play on that a little bit more, and you see nuances of it because remember, she's the younger sister. So I picked up on. I didn't really understand that they were actually blood related of some sort until they got off the boat. So essentially,
It's not, no, they have the same last name, but it doesn't mean that they're blood related.
well, they're family, essentially, because Leah calls her her little sister. And as they talked about it, they're like, because going back to them being on the boat, they spent some time together. They were all roomed in the same room. So in the flashes, they were together in essence. So my assumption was that they were all friends, but it didn't go over my head that Leah called Chantrell's sister and not Hosanna. So I kind of made assumptions and connected dots, and they do allude to them being sisters of some sort. But to your point, they could be cousin, like really close cousins. They could be a half sister, like for real. But Aston, really was like, this is my little sister. So that's what really made me understand that, oh, like that. But it didn't really surprise me. It just kind of was a nod to the mix upness we know about both both families and how they come together. I don't know if, well, that's also a storyline I think that they could explore in a future season. Additionally, she came and she was a worker at a home. She worked with a family. And the other two went to work in a factory. So she was able to, so you saw instances of where her the fairness of her skin gave her a little bit more of a edge over over Leah, her sister, and Hosanna, her friend, because she was able to work into the house. She was able to even go to an audition. She was able to walk around, um and nobody kind of really looked at her in any way. She was able to make friends with um the young white gentleman that she was talking to towards the end of the series. And even like in terms of her being a little bit more accepted by the community, like you clearly saw that discourse there, because even when they arrived at what did people them name, what something gate, um Wantage, me no know about gate, me I thought about that when they arrived at the Wantage family home, they were kind of looking at the brother and the sister like they need to get off my property now. type of type of deal, which I the dynamic of her being fairer skin or lighter skin was apparent from very early, but she definitely had a different trajectory, and she thought her life was going to be a little bit different than she had pictured. um and it ended up being truly horrific for her in her experience with that family. So you mentioned that Hosanna is your favorite character. Why is that?
Because everybody knew our Hosanna. What I loved about her was it's easy to say that, oh, like Ashton say, oh, you get me a nice, decent young lady and not this, Bible toting something. And it turned out Hosanna was that. But Hosanna, at first glance, she could be that. But as you saw her development, which I felt like her development was more, she's a nurse. She did all of these other things, right? And her relationship with her father is really how she was judging, or how she was evaluating a mate, only to find out that this idea of her dad is not perfect, and that was shattered. But I think I saw Hosanna kind of blossom versus, the development of Leah and Chantrell really didn't, because it felt like they came in somewhat developed.
Mhm.
Um, and so with Hosanna, I think she had, like, when they have the host party, I mean, other than the fact that Leah and Chantrell show her Harry Belafonte picture and said this are their brother, outside of that, so
But
she
she
full.
was able to believe that because of Chantrell's complexion, right? There was no way she could show because when you see Aston for the first time, Aston don't look nothing like, when did you take this picture? But that's another thing. Like it portrayed how easy it was to kind of go on. What you
That
say?
is I have a theory. That is the trick. I don't believe that Hosanna truly believed that was their brother. That was her way of getting to England so she could find her
Be her
father.
father. Yeah, but at the time, like it wasn't necessarily revealed that
Veiled,
she was
yeah.
looking for her father at that point in time.
Right.
But to me, I immediately I'm like, oh well, she's showing that why she must believe said the brother look something like one of the two of them. So I thought that was one of the funniest moments. I think I the fact that the sisters showed Hosanna Harry Belafonte's picture and she had the picture and she was like, when him take this picture, I'm not look nothing like Harry Belafonte. That so like it was moments like that that like literally made me laugh out loud. I don't know if I have a favorite character though, to
Yeah,
be
I
completely
loved Hosanna when she outside at the party. I wave the Bible and I
with the
tell them how them
Bible,
I go
oh
to hell.
God.
You know, like, like you see that, right?
Yeah.
So I liked her character the most, not because I identify, but because I felt it was the one character that I saw how it developed and it unfold the arc, all through the 6 episodes.
Hmm.
Um, I think there were some predictable things. Did I expect where it was going with Ashton? I think Ashton's character development was the other one that surprised me in a
Hmm.
way because, in some parts you're like Ashton borrow from Peter for Peter Paul, and we just kind of knew where that was going to end up. But the scene where you saw him delivering the money to go to the white woman door and delivering the money, I would not think that there was the child involved. and
Yes,
and so
yes.
seeing that development was like, oh, okay. um like I said, for me, Leah was just like developed very at the very beginning, and I don't know if it changed. You saw her young, and you understood like why, she decided to sacrifice herself and there with Ephraim so Ephraim wouldn't take set off a Chantrell, right? But her character was just really strong from the beginning, and I don't know if I saw much more development in that after, other than when she thumped down Bernadette. But we didn't know, so she could have do it anyway. Like,
And say she didn't deserve it still in her. Bernadette. We all know I'm Bernadette. So I like that. What I liked about Hosanna too is, and even for a lot of them, they're experiencing, or we got to experience their firsts with them in the country. First party inside, they, got to where they were staying. They were utterly shocked because the comparison to where they're coming from to what their expectations are were completely disconnected.
and to be honest, that was my experience moving from Jamaica to America too. What I thought versus, no, obviously not what they got, but you have a picture in your mind and you have an experience that you expect in your mind versus when you come to America. And I think a lot of immigrants might have a similar experience, like, um, I never to expect this. At the time when I came to Brooklyn, I grew up watching the Cosby Show. You know, I knew they were in Brooklyn. That was my point of reference. And I'm thinking, oh, this is what Brooklyn is going to be, right? Um, it didn't turn out to be that. And it's not necessarily bad, but it's like what what we are told about life abroad and how better it is, we then create this you know, this vision of what it is, and when that there's them just not connect, them just pass each other what we see, that also sets up a disappointment that I don't know if it goes away um as the stay continue. As you heard Hosanna said, like, you know, you said when I'm ready I could go, because you're kind of counting the cost as you go along in the immigrant experience.
I think adding to that experience was um the letters that Aston would send home to really share what he probably I in my mind he wrote down what he thought would entice her to come because he didn't want to be alone. In essence, he knew she was in trouble, but at the same time, he was probably missing that familiarity. And in order to get her to England, he had to portray it in the most positive light. And then when she got there, she was kind of like, "Why didn't you tell me how bad it was?" He's like, "Because I knew you wouldn't come if if you knew how bad it was." So I wonder like how much of that actually happened and how much the idea of opportunity versus and leaving familiar and leaving home for this major opportunity, like in my mind I'm like, well, what made people stick it out? You know what I mean? Like I know, but again, they you start to form community and you start to see the positives, and you really you do a self evaluation, and you're kind of like, well, it's also often a question. I've asked my mom this multiple times. Her and my dad separated, and I'm like, well, why didn't you just go back home? So, but those are questions that I think we never really think to ask. And she was just I think he was just lonely and he wanted her to be with him. Um and then, Chantrell, she had her own dreams of becoming a movie star, and that was like a big dream, right? Whereas Leah's dream was a little bit more accessible in the sense that she probably just wanted to work, save enough money to send for her kids. And she gets here and she probably realizes when they get their pay for the week, they're like, this is not going to do anything. Like, how am I going to even really make this work? But it seems like a lot of people in the series, they ran to England to solve a problem or get away from a problem, and it ended up causing more problems.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I said that, you know, it is the first taste of unmet expectations most immigrants at the time, you know, I can't speak for now, might have, right? It's like this is supposed to be a better way of life, but it's not, it doesn't feel that way. And it typically doesn't feel that way for a very long time. And to your point where you ask your mother, so why you don't go back? Because you've spent so much time away that is like, does it even make sense? And then this idea of going back is an appearance of failure. You know, I'm not saying in the case of your mom, but there's a perception when to those who, you know, based in the film, to those who stay back, you know, they are foreign, yeah, big stuff, you know, and to portray anything other than that. That's why Berna get thumped down, because she got talk about how our pitney Leah pitney them down they hungry, right? And she appear a lie and the fornicate, you know, that's why she get the uppercut. So um you know, like that's those aspects of the immigrant experience you can you just see, and you're just like, this makes sense. um because it's a shared experience, maybe experienced in like different locations, but it's definitely a shared experience. And you could see, yes, like you said, it could have gone very dark, but I'm glad it didn't, because I hear and I'm very aware of some of the experiences people had, and I don't necessarily want it. I didn't want to watch that on film. I didn't need to see or relive that through the stories of other people who tell of what it was like when they first went to England, or even when they first came to the US or whatever, because those are traumatic experiences oftentimes of sexual assault and all of these things, as Chantrell went through, man take off, door off. I'm like, gee, like I was stressed. You s- I was mad watching. I You see my mouth push out, like I couldn't take it. And so when I saw the article that you said, where it said it was a sanitized version, I'm sure it was. Um, but I also didn't need to see an unsanitized version of those
Mhm.
experiences. It
Yeah.
is traumatic to
Mhm.
watch,
Mhm.
knowing that this this is a visual representation of what my grandmother's friends or other families and people went through in that time period. You know what I mean?
I also think you mentioned the article. I also think that that time period there, Leah reminds me of a lot of people I know and encounter, even in my own family, who are people of few words, right? So it wasn't surprising that Leah's character didn't really develop. She was so tight-lipped, and that was so true of so many people that I've come encountered with. Like, they just brush past things, or they accept what is and kind of just move on without the need to focus and talk about it and go through it. And we are the generation of words. We want to chat the things them on talk it out. But I feel like that generation just didn't necessarily, they could identify, but they're not necessarily going to outwardly express all of their needs and wants without action.
I don't I'm gonna challenge that. I don't think Leah was a few words. I think Leah was just the boss. It's clear. She had a boss. She'll fix everything for everybody. And because of that, very few she doesn't really get to or need to talk about her problems, because she's focusing on other people's problems. And that, I agree, is by choice, right? If she is the one addressing and fixing people problem, then you don't have to focus on my thing, because me go fix my thing. And I don't need to be vulnerable and tell you my thing. So there's two things. She don't want to be vulnerable, and that's why she tight-lipped, but she not tight-lipped because she don't want chat. She in everybody business, I fix everything. She did they put her back a wedding pan track. She
But
did
that's
she
all but that's also the complex, right?
complex, yeah.
She's doing work to almost forget about her own issues. And she wants to be close and help. She wants to be close to everyone to help them, and she understands their stories, but she's not really willing to share like what she's feeling, what she's going through. She doesn't want people talking about her business either, because again, she had multiple opportunities to really talk about, you know, her feelings, even with Shelton. Like, I'm like, why didn't she confess to Shelton early? Like, she could have, especially with she know Bernadette, and she know Bernadette mode, so she know all the susty and how people back home know and talk to this one. Like, I read her out when she talked about like just where she came from. So to me, like, she was tight-lipped in that sense. She's not tight-lipped, or she's a woman of few words, but only when it comes to herself.
Yeah, I mean, and that's also part of that experience, right? Like, she was tight-lipped because she didn't want to be judged. She valued herself as a mom. I certainly understood what that is, to have your
Yeah.
child, and you say, "Oh, your child is at mommy," and you feel like, a bad person to not have your child with you. So she's dealing with those things as a mom, that as a, I this idea she run gone, left the pit to them. Like she didn't even properly tell them where she went, right? So that is giving space to mothers, immigrant moms who often leave their kids behind and come America. And then, at the end of the series, she pregnant, so again, I remember the play that, highlighted this. This certain wasn't my experience. My mother did the opposite. My mother come a foreign and bring all of her kids one time. So, this idea of leaving your kids, building a life, and while your kids are down there, you now create a new life and, have this other child on the way. And in some people's experience, a child is already born. So this creates this issue with the family you leave with the kids, because at the end, one child said, him now come, him good. And pon him ticket, my man said, I'm here.
Wait,
Who
wait,
is
wait. Let's
this?
get let's all right, all right. Let's talk about shocking moments. Before you get into it, what were some of the shocking moments? You've mentioned a few in throughout from the series, but what were your shocking moments?
Um, I don't think anything was shocking, like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming. But I think there were definitely standout moments. And I think the level of gaslighting that happened to Chantrell was just like a lot. The man getting police friend for make it seem like the last nanny get locked up, like that whole thing. The them I get run down and beat up by this white mob. Like that was a lot. The intensity was a lot. And it was just like, okay. Um I think if any moment was shocking to me that I did not expect was Ashton of a Pitney. That to me I didn't see coming. The other things somewhat kind of are predictable, but if I were to pick a shocking moment, that would have been Ashton and the Pitney. Everything else you could say, okay, this went this way, but the kid, no.
I didn't expect a kid. But then you there was a scene in the pub where a black guy and a white woman walk in, and he kind of and Hosanna said, "Him really walking with a white woman," and he says, "Well, you can't help who you love and you fall in love with," or whatever
That,
the line was.
that should have been the line that Ashton did in that same position.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Exactly. So that's why he was able to empathize with the gentleman and the woman that he was with. And then he almost I would have think that based off of picking up on that same energy, because essentially that's what created that and caused the mob to kind of along with Leah kind of coming in and I try to stand up and change the music in the pub, but that was kind of like, what is this black guy doing with this white woman in the pub in my face? And that kind of it was after that that they had this entire mob scene where they had to leave and kind of run around and hide. I didn't expect Shelton to come to Leah's rescue. I honestly didn't think that they were going to be romantically involved the way that they were. So that was a little um
I did, because the
yeah.
story is based on the man's life. And it is like, did you read that? It was also inspired by the fact that later on in life he met his real father. So I expected it. I don't know why. I read that it was inspired by his mom, and apparently his mom had a relationship with this man when she first come out England. So me did expect it.
I didn't read the backstory. So
Yeah.
yes, that probably would. But I also did it. So now that you're saying that, so Leah is essentially his mom,
Yes.
Sir Lenny's mom.
Yeah.
Okay. 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 I thought it was more of like a collection of thoughts,
I
ideas,
mean,
along
it's
with the
a
stories. Yeah, yeah.
I think it's like an amalgamation of
Mhm.
other, people's experience, but she, I believe, would be the inspiration for his mom based on the backstory
Got it,
that I
got it.
read for the series. So I kind of knew where that was going.
Yeah.
Um,
Me well shocked say Ephraim bright up himself, faced up himself and take him picnic ticket for come see Leah
So
with
who you
with
think would have traveled with the two young pitney them on the plane? Can you see? I mean, from the CS, for you see the setup, the two pitney them come off of the plane. Them ask, where is so and so? He never come. So my
well,
next
me
question
kind of did
is,
worry. Said the two pitney did by themselves. I'm like, did that happen at that time? I don't
that
know.
that's what I'm
Yes,
saying. That would not
yes,
have happened.
yes,
Unaccompanied minor is a modern
yes,
day thing,
yes,
right? So
yes.
in my head, I was like, so who bring the pit to them? This is going to be, and then what I typically do, this is my little cheat thing. When I'm watching a series, I pause it. I'm like, how much left? All right, 5 minutes left. Atta claps are come, right? So that's how I
Attack clap back
anticipate
home.
Oh, I anticipate. So I kind of knew we were gonna be shocked with something at the end, because I'm like, okay, what's happening? And so I
I
wasn't
mean, I was
totally
more shocked
surprised.
for I was shocked by the pregnancy, and then off comes Ephraim, like, sir, sir, you're brighty. But I also knew that something when her mom wrote her and said that Ephraim is doing right by the kids, almost as if that was a signal. So in essence, Leah also didn't share anything about her and Shelton to her mom either. So she's keeping Shelton a secret from not only like the people around her kind of know where they are, but she's keeping Shelton a secret and she's fully pregnant in this at the end. Like you never tell nobody say you're pregnant, Nita? Like Leah, come on. That is messy.
Who shouldn't tell that
She never
to?
tell our mother because our mother would have
Okay,
said, Ephraim, stand on your yard. Me I gonna go take the pity then.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
like,
and she didn't report back of her, like you said, her relationship, because then Ephraim come and be like, who is this? You understand? So
well, at least
like,
she would know like Ephraim would know because then he's going to get his woman and defend it. But at the same time, like she's so like he's coming in off guard because he's expecting her to just be a worn out mom, tired of him. They're still married. They they're not they're separate in geography, but in his mind, he's like, all right, my woman left me. Like in his mind, it could be that he felt like she left to get him back in order, like he wasn't doing right by her. um and to be honest, I don't know that there wasn't a romantic connection that Leah and Ephraim didn't have, because if you saw the scenes, he was basically flirting with both sisters to see which one he it would mate, and it kind of felt like he was interested in both of them. So I'm not really buying the fact that she wanted to marry Ephraim. She push up our nose and push up herself because nothing more than she little jealous of her little sister. And she go get the man and then she don't like what she get and then she run go England.
I mean, who would I like what she get? I mean, it's not
I mean, no,
I.
no, no. I know. But I'm just saying it doesn't look like it wasn't what she pictured, right? Again, at home, she's in a relationship. It wasn't what she pictured. She gets to England. It wasn't what she pictured. And she's making adjustments based on that. But to me, Ephraim doesn't have the inclination that she have a whole life outside of her home life. You know what I mean? So I think that to me was I was shocked when Ephraim came off the plane for sure. And then the extra B&B. Yes, for Aston. I did. I was like, why does he keep going to this house and putting something in the mailbox? Like, what is he doing? And at first, I thought that that was the guy that I thought maybe he owed more money and he was just paying somebody off. And then I was like, well, maybe it's something related to that guy. But I was pretty shocked about that too. Poor Hosanna.
Yeah. I think
But wait a minute, wait a minute. We also didn't talk about Hosanna's father.
I
The
was just
man
about
is
that's where I was gonna go.
all
I
right, go
think the
on.
other that's why I particularly like Hosanna's storyline. Her storyline, I think, is the most developed of all of them because you see the conflict, you see how that impacts the rest of her life. You see that yes, she's this Bible toting, whatever, and then like she come down to earth a little bit because she, she in praising God in a way she came to the realization and our father had to tell her I'm not Jesus, you know. And that's kind of where she was like Ashton blah blah blah. The part that I found the funniest in her storyline when the first guy, because God know whoever Ashton borrow money from her Ashton, and him them start quote Song of Solomon and it sound like him like our lyrics. I started say, "Hoy," and then I was like, "This is from the Song of Solomon," you know. So the Song of Solomon is a is a love book. It's like up
And
here.
this
I
is
like
the man is clearly trying to pick her up. And poor Aston is like, my girl, you don't know what said the man I try lyrics here.
yeah. So just even when she got church and she had try sing the song with a pep in her little step and and all and they're just looking like, what is this? We believe this is
Wait,
not.
rewind that, come again. Oh, go on, Carrie.
No, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. And then she raised up the man and said, Jesus said, "Go ye into all the world." So I loved her character because you just saw that this was who she is. This that you saw her naivete on display. You also saw that in addition to some of that, she wasn't as naive as people thought she was. She's actually really smart. And but she had an agenda, and I thought that was a surprising thing. This is what it felt like. Her character just kept giving like, oh yes, oh she have
Yeah,
secret,
now that you're
oh
saying that, I do get that. Yeah.
yeah, like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh yes, and she jump and she had drive the car and till Leah said, "Where are we going? We lost." And she's like, and then she, the jig is up, she have to say where she going. But that's why I liked her character the best because it just kept developing. It kept giving you things that weren't predictable in a way.
The
Um
amount of people and things when they find with just on my blood.
Map reading isn't what it is used to be for us. But what else? Hosanna's father. Isn't that Sir Lenny who played the role? I believe it is.
Let me check.
It
It might
is.
be. Go on
I
with your thoughts.
believe
I
it
can find it.
is.
I can find it.
Um because
Oh, it is. Yeah.
yep.
Lenny Henry as Remuel Drake, Hosanna's father.
Hmm.
Yeah, that
Because
was good
he
enough.
Yeah, because I'm like, his face looked very familiar from his other
Yeah.
projects. And I'm like, from the first time they saw the church in Jamaica, I was like, I think that's him. But it
Mm.
didn't, because how they did the flashback, I was like, maybe it's just me. But by the time they were in England, it was very clear that it was him. But the other thing I liked about it was this aspect of community and how, as West Indians, they built, communities for survival wherever they went. And seeing that with the factory workers, and even I loved that the woman they rented the house from was called Mrs. Bizwas, and that's a nod to the house of Mr. Bizwas, which is a book by V.S. Naipaul, the Trinidadian writer. So I thought that was little like, Easter egg in there. Um who else? Like just all these different things, and I definitely don't want to speak to the trueness or the accuracy of it, whether it was actually true that they could live in a house with an Indian person and a white person renting rooms. I can't speak to whether that would have been accurate for that time, but you could see how it added color to their characters and how they lived and went about life. um but also the folks that they did live with in the house, they weren't you can also see elements of them being somewhat outcast of the
Hmm.
main society itself, which is why they were all living under the same roof in
Yeah, I think
the
we
house.
saw a few moments of white Brits and people of different backgrounds supporting the community, right? Like when Leah and Shelton were hiding out in someone else's shed for a little while, or like in their basement area, and she didn't want to disturb them. And she talked about how, they had every right to be here, and, this shouldn't be happening. There's the pub owner who allows them to, is not in their establishment and being in the same spaces at the same time. Because when Aston went to go to the loan shark, that was all white in there, and he had to, it was almost like doing this doomsday walk going into this place and asking
I
about
hated that. I hated
yeah.
everything about it.
Yeah,
I was just like,
yeah,
I
I
couldn't.
definitely, so they were able to nod to the racism that they experienced, and there's probably a lot more, but they chose to focus on the three women and their experiences within their community, and I really thought I liked that aspect. So to the point of it being sanitized, I agree. I was like, I don't know that I want to see all of that. And it's probably just because we've seen so much trauma play out on television and on screen, and we really know that it exists. So they were able to capture the essence of all the things that happen, but by focusing on the community, it really is a testament to the resilience, right? To the ability to make something out of nothing, and really um create a community that would be supportive of one another, because they have, very similar goals, and they have similar backgrounds, and that's really how community is started and how communities really thrive. And to this day, I think that we benefit from communities that our grandparents and parents have built for us from an immigrant space.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I said, I'm not saying this is, champion was better. This is just a different speed. And we sometimes it's good to have a different speed of a series. This was a little bit more mellow. There weren't too many dramatic, like it wasn't drama everywhere you turned. Um, you said you'd like to see a season two. What would you like to see in a season two? Because I mean, yeah, what would you like to see in a
I
season
would
two?
like to see what happened with Ephraim and Leah and Shelton, because that claps, that for sure. Why? And then not only that, like, why did the son stay back, right? And what is that about? You could develop the characters around just their family nucleus, because now what is he from going to do? Is he going to stay, or is he going to go back to Jamaica? Because he's coming with the intention of staying with Leah. So what happens now? Does Shelton get him a job at the same factory, and them get a room, them share the same room, them in our house? That what with the baby? And then how does Hosanna and her dad and Ashton, like, Ashton didn't have a ring. Ashton just kept falling all over himself all the time. Like, what is,
Them
and
teeth
even the
it.
daughter. The daughter,
Dentifit.
no, me know, but I'm just saying, like, what happens with the daughter, him and Hosanna get married. Really, and also what happens with Chantrell. Like, she has this really close relationship with the other nanny. She is kind of in a shocking young place where she's just kind of falling back from a lot, but she still wants to have fun. So what does that look like? And if you think about it, like, that whole entire community and how the kids grow up, um could be like part of, at least to me, it could at least, I mean, if you think about period pieces that we see on television, Mad Men, The Wonder Years, like, those are things where we see it. What's that one, something Mrs. Maisel? I haven't watched it, but it's on Amazon. Like, those are period pieces that have more than one season. So I think that there's the opportunity to kind of develop the characters a little bit more, and really even going into their children and grandchildren, and what today's life for that, like, what if they got old, like how Mandy Moore does get in This Is Us. So I think there's still a lot of story that they could tell. But first and foremost, we want to know a wagwan with Ephraim and Shelton and Leah, because that one threesome we never asked for.
Yeah. All right. So given that, we talked about the music, how it you said, initially the music the how the music sounded more Latin, and then we had a discussion. I said, well, the
Yes,
calypso of the day sounded
yes,
similar, and so
yes,
I sent you London is the place of me. Did you hear
yes,
it? So
yes,
you
yes,
hear
yes.
how it was the
Very similar.
horns is
Yes.
very similar, and
You have to
how
go back in that, yeah, musical catalog to
yeah.
really appreciate, like, that opening song. And I think it's probably, it was a moment for me. Like, I wasn't harping on it, but I'm like, I need to go back and listen to, like, what music sounded like at that era in order to really assess what I'm hearing. But the offline conversation that we were having is, it's also a testament to how similar the sounds were across inter islands. You know what I mean? So I think, we talk a lot about our differences, but there are so many cases of similarities between weather, language, food, music, that there's this DNA that we have kind of taken forward a bit. So I thought that was an educational moment for me, which me love learn, and me love music. So thank you, Carrie. Please, yes, yes.
And that also is a nod to Strictly Facts, a guide to Caribbean
Yes,
history
big
and
up Strictly
culture.
Facts and the playlist. Yes,
Yes, it
yes,
was their playlist, and we talked about how the music that was created as a result of the Windrush generation. So Lord Kitchener's "London Is the Place to Me" is was kind of, one of the calypsos that tell the story about this migration, and of course Miss Lou's colonization in reverse, which is my personal favorite that we had to learn in school in Jamaica. So that was one thing. So it was the music. Was there anything else that we wanted to talk about? No.
I
I
don't think
think
so.
no. All right. So we talked about how we evaluate films. We talked about accent. We talked about as a criteria. We talked about character development, and we talked about overall storyline, right? And so in terms of accent, right, we said that if it's a if it's a small walk-on role or a brief role, the accent should be on point. If it's a bigger story, yeah, we can waver a little bit on the accent. For the character, we said that it really should, you know, not only developed into like beyond these tropes about Caribbean people, but really go deep and nuance into culture, and the overall storyline should follow a similar path. So when it comes to accents overall, what is your rating for Three Little Birds? How would you rate the
Accent.
series
Oh, the
for
total series.
accent?
I would so I want to take into consideration one, it's British English and uh, where we are evaluate. I remember saying we learn the Queen's English, so I think that there are similarities in terms of tones. So I thought the accent was fine for me. So I didn't really rate it. I rated it a
Listen,
4.
you gave it a 4?
Yeah,
Boy. All right.
yeah.
And in
Would
terms of
you? Yeah.
what me give it,
Yeah. What you give it? Yeah.
me literally gave it a 2.5.
Okay.
I gave it a 2.5. I mean, it wasn't, remember, we said if other aspects of the three categories were fine, we would give the accent a bly, but
Did
it was
not
all
give it
right. It wasn't it's
I don't yeah, I didn't think it was totally off, and I
yeah.
also don't know what the sound of again, I don't have the context.
It's not, remember, and this is what they just come from Jamaica to England.
But
So
remember, at that time, it was very they wanted to speak the Queen's English, so that wasn't the idea of having this twang and this accent that sounded a little off. I felt like for the time period, 4.
no, all right.
But I would have to check with people
If
from
you
that time
want to,
period
no, I
and
can
in
tell you,
English.
Miss Lou is it. When she wrote Jamaica colonization in reverse, the patois is Racha patois. It is like inner the patois. So it's not like, they may not, and she
She's a
makes fun
she's
of
a
it.
she's a poet and a writer. Yeah, but again, she makes fun of it. But however, did people talk like that? Like I make fun of people that twang, but they still twang.
Yes, but she said she also has a poem that says no little twang, right? So they will twang when it's ready, but they will talk the patois. And I'm not saying again, it's not perfect.
Yeah,
It's livable, but that
yeah.
is just my grief
Okay.
for it
Yes,
because I
yes,
was just
yes,
like the
yes,
only person that I felt like, yeah, all of them, the accent was off, but we will live with it. Like I'm
yeah,
just a hard grader of it. Like,
yeah.
it's doable. So Megita
Okay,
2.5.
okay,
What do you
okay.
give the characters?
I would say a 3.
Yeah, that's the same rating I gave the characters
Yeah, yeah,
because I felt like there could have been, particularly with Chantel and Leah. All
yeah,
right,
yeah.
and storyline.
Storyline, I gave it a 5. I would give it
Yeah,
a 5.
I
Yeah,
gave it a
I like the
4.5.
storyline. Yeah,
I gave it a
I like the
4.5.
story.
And I
4.5. All
yeah.
right.
So overall, we gave, if I averaged out the score, we gave this film um
Yeah, the
an,
Excel sheets open,
of
don't you?
course, may have my Excel sheet.
We
Of
know
course,
that
you know this.
already.
Of course. It gets a 3.6 out of 5, rounded
Uh,
up to maybe a 4.
yeah.
So, yeah, that's the score. And that's generally how I felt. Like, yeah, it worked.
Yes.
We liked
It,
it.
yes, I liked it. I liked
We
it.
liked it.
So if you guys have not watched Three Little Birds, please go ahead and do so. Support our stories. Even if they're coming across the pond. I love being able to watch all of it and talk to Carrie about it. So make sure you guys watch it. It's available. I watched it on this app called BritBox through Amazon. So you guys can, if you have Amazon Prime or if you want to download BritBox, you can do that. Again, it's Three Little Birds available through BritBox, and make sure you guys come back in. If you haven't watched it, watch it and let us know what your thoughts are. Carrie, any last words?
No, oh yeah. Yeah, I thought I was on mute. No, I really think you should watch it. And what I love is that we now have variety to say, okay, we're watching this, and I think it's a welcomed variety to, you know, all the other content that's out there. And you'll enjoy it. I believe you will enjoy it. It's a nice, welcomed pace
Yeah,
for content. So I believe
agreed.
you enjoy it.
Agreed.
All right. And so
All
until
right.
next time, walk good, later, little more, all these things.
All the things then. Bye.
Bye.